Now it's time to start our discussion about inheritance. And inheritance means to create a class using another class. So let's see why you'll need to do that. So I'm going to create first a class called car. I'm going to put colon and I'm going to type here def init to create the constructor. And I'm going to have here a name parameter, a color parameter, a number of engines parameter, and the number of doors. Now I'm gonna create fields for those parameters. I'm gonna create some fields here. So I'm gonna type self.name equals name, self.color equals color, self.engines equals engines, and self.doors equals doors. So now we created the fields for the class. Let's also create two functions, two methods, more correct to say, because methods are part of a class. So I'm gonna type here def, and the first function is gonna be called move. We press enter, we add here a print, and it's gonna say self.name plus, we're gonna concatenate some string here, is moving. And another function, go at the start, def.stop, and we're gonna say print self.name has stopped. Now let's create another, let's add a space between those two, and let's create now here another class called plane. So I'm gonna go at the start, and I'm gonna type class plane, and I'm gonna put colon, I'm gonna type def init again, and we're gonna basically copy the thing that we did here. So let's actually delete this, let's copy this, and let's also copy those functions, because our plain class is also going to have those two functions. So I'm going to type here, and let's add two spaces between our code, because this is what Python wants, to have two spaces between the code. Now what we have here is now that we have two classes, car and plane, and they both have name, color, engines, doors. They have both the function move and stop. They also have the function move and stop here. And with inheritance, we can make this a little simpler and better, because if you think about all the vehicles that we're gonna create, either a plane, a car or a plane, they're all gonna have in common the name, the color, and all are gonna have a function move and a function stop. So it doesn't make sense to put those fields inside the classes, inside the classes that we have here. A better way is to put those fields and functions inside the parent class, inside the super class, how it's called, and we can inherit from that class all the fields, name and color, and the functions, and we don't need to create those functions again in our class. So we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna create a class up here called vehicle. So I'm gonna type class vehicle. I'm gonna press enter, and I'm gonna type def also init, and this is gonna have a name and the color. And I'm gonna type here self.name equals name, and self.color equals color. So now we have those fields inside this class, and as I said, those fields are common in both classes that we have here. Now which means to create a generic class from which you can inherit, but from the classes that are going to inherit have a relationship. So a vehicle is a car, the other way. The car is a vehicle, the plane is a vehicle. So you need to have this kind of relationship in order to use inheritance. Now, so here we define the generic vehicle, that all vehicles that are going to be created. Here we define the generic fields and functions, which all the vehicles that we're going to create are going to have those in common. And in this case, all vehicles are going to have a name and a color, and all vehicles are going to move and stop in some way or another. So let's copy this code that we have here and let's paste it here. So let's paste the code here. Now what we can do now, let's add a space here because we need to have two spaces. We can delete those functions from here, and we can also delete those functions from here. And what we can do now is we can inherit all the functions and the fields that we define here in our own classes car and plane, because car and plane are both vehicles. And to inherit, we put at the end of the name of the class opening and closing parentheses, and we type here vehicle. And we're gonna do the same here. I'm gonna type vehicle. But now we have this colored, and if you hover over and if you click on this light bulb, it says add super class call. So now what is basically saying, hey, I see that you want to inherit from the vehicle class and you want to have access to those functions and the fields that we have here. But in order to do that, we need to pass some values to the name and the color. And this is basically what is saying that we need to do here. So if I click on this light bulb and I add here, I click on this which says add super call, look what happens. It added this line of code which has this function super, and we have init, and we have name and color, and those name and color are initialized for the superclass, that for the constructor of the superclass that is defined here. So the name and color that are going to be passed here are going to be passed to the name and color for the constructor that we have here and for the fields that we define here. Now because of that, we don't need to create the fields again here. So I can delete this, and I can also delete this. But let's actually add the super call here. So let's click on this light bulb, add super call. So now we can delete those because they are going to be initialized, they're going to be created inside the super class. So we don't need to create them inside our own classes. So look now how beautiful our code looks. Now, let's say that I go down here and I create, let's see why we have another line here. It says that you can reformat the file. So let's click on that. And now it's gone. Now let's go down here at the start, and I'm going to create a class called car. So I'm going to type here car. I'm going to put equals to car, and it's going to have a name, let's say Tesla, and it's going to have a color, let's say red. It's going to have a number of engines, 1, and the number of doors, 4. Let's press Ctrl Alt L to format the code. Now, what we done here is that we created the class car, but at the same time also initialized the parent class, which is the class vehicle. So Tesla and red are not defined, they are not defined as fields here, but they are defined in the superclass. So when we pass here Tesla red for the name and the color, those values are passed further to the super constructor of the class from which we are inheriting, and they are going to be stored inside the superclass. So this is very important to know. Now if I go down here and I type plane to create also a plane, I'm going to type plane. And let's say I'm going to type Boeing. And for the color, let's say white and blue. For the number of engines, let's say 4. And for the number of doors, I don't know how many doors, let's say 8. Let's press Ctrl Alt L to format the code. So now we have created two objects using our classes, but we created those objects using also the parent class from which we are inheriting. Now look what we can also do, which is very interesting. Now I can go here, I can type car.move, and I can type also car.stop. And now you may be wondering, hey, how can I call the car.move and car.stop, because those functions are not defined inside the car class. Yes, but they are defined inside the parent class, inside the class from which we are inheriting. And because of that, we can use them inside our code. And when they are called, they're going to use the values that is passed here, Tesla. And we can do the same for plane. So I'm going to type here plane.move and plane.stop. So now if you run this code, we get Tesla is moving, Tesla has stopped, and then we get Boeing is moving and Boeing has stopped. And those functions are called from the parent class that we defined above. They are not inside the classes from which we are inheriting. So this is how you can use inheritance. You can create a generic base class in which you can define some fields and functions which are going to be shared among other and many classes. You can inherit all those fields and functionality in another class, and you can use those fields and functions in your own class. And in addition to that, you can also override functions. So we'll see that in a different video, that you can override the functions that are defined here, and you can provide a particular implementation for the functions in your own class. So here we have only this. Here is saying the name of the vehicle and it's moving, but we can override that function inside the car class, and we can provide an implementation particular to a car. So how a car is moving, moving in a particular way which is specific to a car, and you can do the same here. You can override the function move or the function stop, and you can provide an implementation which is particular to the plane, because a plane is moving in a very different way. So we're gonna see how you can do that in the next video. So I'm gonna end the video now and see you in the next video.